The Great Hall of Nexus Prime Station was filled with aliens from 100 different worlds. Crystal beings that sang when they moved. Creatures made of living water held in special suits. Robots that contained the minds of beings who had lived for thousands of years. They were the Galactic Council, the rulers of known space. And they had gathered to hear a request from humanity. Ambassador Daniel Hughes stood at the center of the hall. He was 63 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. Behind him sat his assistant, Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos, a woman half his age with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. They were the only humans in a room of thousands. For 300 years, humanity had served the Council. When Earth first made contact with alien life in the year 2247, humans had been excited. They thought they were joining a family of species working together for the good of all. They were wrong. The Council saw humans as useful animals. Strong enough to do dangerous work. Smart enough to follow orders. Stupid enough to accept whatever scraps they were given. For 3 centuries, humans had done the jobs no other species wanted. They fixed machines in places so hot that other beings would melt. They mined minerals on planets with gravity so strong it would crush most aliens. They flew rescue missions into the dead zones between stars, where ships disappeared and never came back. And what did they get in return? Trade agreements that favored Council species. Technology that was always one generation behind what the Council used. Protection under laws that never seemed to protect them when it mattered. Daniel had spent 40 years as a diplomat. He had asked politely. He had begged quietly. He had done everything right, everything by the rules, hoping that one day the Council would see humans as equals. Today was the last time he would ask. "Hi, Speaker," Daniel said, his voice calm and steady. "I come before this Council with a simple request. Humanity has served faithfully for 300 years. We have bled for you. We have died for you. We have built your stations and fixed your ships and saved your people when no one else would. We ask only for what we have earned, full membership in this Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that come with it." The Valanthi High Speaker looked down at him from the raised platform where the Council leaders sat. The Valanthi were beings of living crystal, beautiful and cold. Their bodies caught the light and scattered it into rainbows, but their hearts were as hard as stone. Ambassador Hughes, the High Speaker, said, "Your request has been noted. The Council will now vote." The vote took less than a minute. It was not even close. "The request is denied," the High Speaker announced. "Humanity is not ready for such responsibility. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, when your species has matured, we will consider this matter again." The laughter started slowly. First from the Morvani delegation, the immortal robots who thought themselves better than all other life. Then from the Valanthi, their crystals chiming in cruel harmony. Then from the Crethon, the water beings who lived in the deep oceans of a distant world. Soon the entire hall was laughing at the foolish humans who thought they deserved equality. Daniel stood perfectly still. He had expected this. He had hoped for something different, but he had expected exactly this. Maria leaned forward and whispered in his ear. "Sir, are we really doing this?" "We are," Daniel replied quietly. "It's time." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small chip, no bigger than his thumbnail. He placed it on the podium in front of him and waited for the laughter to die down. "This chip," Daniel said, "contains humanity's formal withdrawal from all Council treaties, trade agreements, and defense pacts. Our membership in the Galactic Council ends today. Our service to you ends today. Everything ends today." The laughter stopped. The High Speaker's crystals flickered with confusion. "Ambassador, you cannot be serious. Humanity depends on the Council for everything. Your economy would collapse. Your colonies would starve. You would be alone in a hostile universe." "We have been alone in a hostile universe since the day we met you," Daniel replied. "The only difference is that now we will stop pretending otherwise." "This is madness," the Crethon minister said, his voice bubbling through his water suit. "You need our technology, our trade routes, our protection. Your technology that you always kept one step ahead of ours? Your trade routes that charged us 3 times what they charged anyone else. Your protection that looked the other way when Morvani corporations attacked our colonies. Daniel shook his head. We do not need any of it. We never did. We only thought we did because you told us so. The Morvani Supreme Counselor rose from his seat. His metal body was polished to a mirror shine, and his voice was cold and mechanical. You are making a mistake, Ambassador. Humanity is a small species on the edge of known space. Without the Council, you will be prey for every pirate and warlord in the galaxy. Then we will fight them, Daniel said simply. We have been fighting our whole lives. Fighting to survive, fighting to prove ourselves, fighting for a seat at a table that was never going to welcome us. He smiled, and there was no warmth in it. We are tired of fighting for your approval. From now on, we fight only for ourselves. He turned and walked toward the exit. Maria fell into step beside him, her head held high. Ambassador Hughes, the High Speaker, called out, "If you walk out that door, there is no coming back. The Council will not forgive this insult." Daniel stopped at the doorway. He turned and looked back at the assembled delegates, the rulers of 1,000 worlds who had spent 3 centuries treating his people like dirt. "Insult," he said. "You have insulted us for 300 years. You laughed at us when we asked for respect. You used us when you needed us and threw us away when you did not. And now, when we finally decide that we have had enough, you call it an insult?" He shook his head slowly. "No, High Speaker, this is not an insult. This is a goodbye. And I hope, for your sake, that you never have to learn how much you needed us." The doors closed behind him, and humanity walked away from the Galactic Council forever. Outside the chamber, Maria let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. "Do you think they understand what just happened?" "Not yet," Daniel said, "but they will. Give them a few months. Give them a year. When their stations start breaking down and their ships stop flying and their colonies start failing, they will understand." "And what about us? Will we be okay?" Daniel looked out the window at the stars, the vast and endless darkness that had always called to humanity. "We have been okay for 300 years despite everything they did to us. We will be more than okay now that we are free." He started walking toward the human ship that would take them home. "Come on, Maria. We have a lot of work to do. Humanity is finally going to show the galaxy what we can accomplish when we are not held back." Behind them, the Galactic Council sat in stunned silence, not yet realizing that the universe they knew had just ended. 6 months after humanity walked away, the first jump gate failed. Jump gates were the heart of galactic civilization. They were massive rings floating in space, each one a doorway to another star system. Without them, a journey that took hours would take centuries. The Council had built thousands of them over millions of years, creating a web of instant travel that connected every inhabited world. Human engineers had maintained those gates for 300 years. They crawled through the narrow passages where radiation would kill any other species. They replaced parts and sections so hot that metal would glow red. They did the dangerous, dirty, thankless work that kept the galaxy running. Now they were gone, and no one knew how to replace them. High Counselor Therixis of the Valanthi sat in his office on the capital world, reading reports that got worse every day. His advisor, a young Valanthi named Sereth, stood before him with another stack of bad news. "The Korath Gate failed this morning," Sereth said. "That cuts off 17 colony worlds from the main trade routes. Food shipments cannot get through. Medical supplies cannot get through. Those worlds will start running out of essential goods within weeks." Theraxis felt his crystal body tighten with stress. "Send repair crews." "We have no repair crews, High Counselor." The humans were the repair crews. "Our own engineers do not know how to do the work. They never had to learn, then train them. Training takes years. The gates are failing now." Sarathis crystals flickered with nervous light. "And the gates are only the beginning of our problems." Theraxis did not want to hear this, but he knew he had to. "Tell me." Human workers made up the majority of the workforce in hazardous environments across Council space. Mining operations on high-gravity worlds, waste processing on orbital stations, reactor maintenance on power plants, deep space rescue and recovery. Sarath paused. All of these operations have either stopped completely or are running at a fraction of their former capacity. Surely someone can do this work. No one wants to, High Counselor. The Morvani considered manual labor beneath them. The Krethon cannot survive in most of the environments where humans worked. And our own people, Sarath hesitated. Say it. Our own people have never done such work. For 300 years, we had humans to do it for us. We forgot how to do it ourselves. Or perhaps we never knew. Thraxus rose and walked to his window. Outside, the crystal spires of Velanthi capital gleamed in the sunlight. It was the most beautiful city in the known galaxy, a masterpiece of art and architecture that had stood for 1,000,000 years. And now it was slowly dying because no one knew how to maintain the systems that kept it alive. "What are the humans doing?" he asked. "They are thriving," Sarath replied. "They have established new trade agreements with species outside Council jurisdiction. The Turellians have signed a full alliance with them. The Marsh Confederation is negotiating a technology-sharing agreement. Even the Void-Touched have been seen meeting with human representatives. The Void-Touched do not meet with anyone." Whatever the humans offered them, it was enough. Thraxus turned back to face his advisor. "Contact Ambassador Hughes. Offer him improved trade terms. Observer status at council meetings. Whatever it takes to bring them back." Sarath's crystals dimmed with embarrassment. "We have tried, High Counselor. Multiple times, the ambassador refuses to take our calls. His only response was a recorded message that said, 'You had 300 years to treat us fairly. Now, live with your choices, on the water world of Marsh Prime.'" The Krethen were facing their own disaster. Minister of Resources Gelboth floated in his office deep beneath the waves, listening to his chief engineer describe the death of their civilization. "The filtration systems are failing," the engineer said, her tentacles curling with distress. Human maintenance crews handled the deep pressure repairs, the thermal vent stabilizers, the toxin scrubbers in the lower depths. Without them, our water is becoming poison. How long do we have? 2 years before the first city becomes uninhabitable. 5 years before the contamination reaches critical levels across all population centers. The engineer paused. Perhaps 10 years before extinction becomes unavoidable. Golbeth felt the cold water around him grow colder. "There must be something we can do. We can try to train our own people. But the work is dangerous. Many will die learning to do what humans did routinely. And even if we succeed, it may not be fast enough. What about hiring humans back? They will work for anyone who pays their price. But their price is no longer measured in credits alone. They want respect. They want apologies. They want us to admit that we were wrong." The engineer's voice grew quiet. "Can we do that, Minister? Can we admit that we treated them poorly for 300 years? Golbeth did not answer. He did not know if he could. On the Morvani orbital platforms, the immortal robots were learning that immortality was more fragile than they had believed. Director of Continuity. Zereth 7 reviewed the failure reports with growing horror. Consciousness cores were the technology that allowed Morvani minds to transfer from one synthetic body to another, living forever as long as the cores were maintained. Human technicians had performed that maintenance for centuries. Handling delicate work that required skills the Morvani themselves had never developed. Now, those technicians were gone, and Morvane were dying. 23 permanent deaths this month, Zereth 7's assistant reported. Core failures that could not be repaired in time. Minds that existed for thousands of years gone in an instant because a circuit failed and no one knew how to fix it. "This is unacceptable," Zereth 7 said. "We are the Morvani. We are immortal. We do not die. We are dying now, Director. At current rates, we will lose hundreds within the year. Thousands within a decade. Our species will not survive another century without human help." Zereth 7 thought about the humans they had mocked for so long. The primitive creatures who lived such short lives, who broke down and died after a mere century or two. The Morvani had pitied them, looked down on them, laughed at their fragile biology and temporary existence. Now those fragile creatures held the key to Morvani survival, and they had every reason to refuse. "Contact the human government," Zereth7 said finally. Not through council channels. Directly tell them I wish to negotiate personally. What will you offer them? Whatever they want. Zereth7's metal body seemed to sag with exhaustion. My wealth. My influence. My public apology. Whatever it takes to convince them that at least some of us have learned our lesson. And if they refuse, then I will die, Zereth7 said, knowing that I finally understood the value of the beings we threw away. Across the galaxy, the same realization was spreading. The Council's species had built their civilization on the backs of human workers, and they had never bothered to notice. Now those workers were gone, and the civilization they had built was crumbling. The humans had not attacked them. They had not sought revenge. They had simply walked away and started building something better, and in doing so, they had revealed the truth that the Council had hidden from itself for 300 years. Without humanity, the galaxy could not survive. 1 year after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. It was supposed to be a meeting about solutions. It became a meeting about survival. The Grand Assembly Chamber looked different now. The floors were dirty because no one had cleaned them. The lights flickered because no one had fixed the power systems. Half the seats were empty because many delegates could not travel anymore. The jump gates that connected their worlds had failed. High Speaker Volanthe stood at the central podium, her crystal body dim with exhaustion and fear. She had not slept in weeks. None of them had. The situation is critical, she announced to the remaining delegates. 32 major jump gates have failed completely. Trade across council space has dropped by 70%. 60 colony worlds report emergency conditions. The Crethon delegation informs us that 4 of their underwater cities have been abandoned. The chamber was silent. There was no more laughter. There had not been any laughter for months. I propose a military solution, the Morvani representative said, rising from his seat. His metal body was dull and scratched, showing signs of the poor maintenance that was killing his people. Human space is small. Their fleet is weak by our standards. A show of force would remind them of their place in the galaxy. With what fleet? The Crethon minister asked. His water suit was cloudy, the filtration systems barely working. Half our warships are in pieces waiting for repairs. The humans designed those ships. They built them. They maintained them. We cannot even fly them without their help. Then sabotage, the Morvani countered. Attack their food production. Destroy their power grid. Bring them to their knees and force them to serve us again. A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. You could try that, but I would strongly advise against it. Every head in the room turned toward the entrance. A human woman walked down the central aisle, her boots clicking on the dirty floor. She was in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back from a stern face. She wore the uniform of the Terran Defense Force. With the stars of an admiral on her shoulders, Admiral Patricia Vance stopped in the center of the chamber and looked around at the assembled delegates with calm, steady eyes. How did you get in here? The High Speaker demanded. Security should have stopped you. Your security systems are not working very well these days, Patricia replied. Too many human technicians in the maintenance crews, I suppose. Volanthe guards moved toward her, their crystal weapons raised. Patricia held up a hand. Before you do something foolish, you should know that I am here under diplomatic protection from the Tyrellian Empire. We signed a mutual defense treaty with them last month. Attacking me would be an act of war against the Tyrellians as well as humanity. She smiled slightly. I do not think you can afford another enemy right now. The guards hesitated, looking to the High Speaker for guidance. She waved them back with a frustrated gesture. Say what you came to say, then leave, the High Speaker said coldly. I came to prevent a war, Patricia said, because I heard what you were discussing. And I need you to understand why attacking humanity would be the biggest mistake you've ever made. She pulled a small device from her pocket and activated it. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing ships and numbers and tactical data. This is the current state of human military capability, Patricia said. 14 carrier battle groups, 900 armed cruisers, 2,500 fighters and interceptors. all built in our own shipyards, with our own technology. Designed from the ground up by human engineers? Impressive for a minor species, the Morvani delegate said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. But still no match for the combined council fleets. Your combined fleets are in pieces, Patricia replied flatly. But even if they were fully operational, you would still lose. Do you want to know why? She did not wait for an answer. She changed the display to show technical diagrams of council warships. For 300 years, humans repaired your ships. We crawled through every system, learned every weakness, understood every flaw. Your Volanthi battlecruisers have a fatal vulnerability in their shield generators that your own engineers never discovered because they never had to push the systems to their limits. We did. We know exactly how to exploit it. She changed the display again. Your Crethan bioships require specific nutrient compounds to function. We control the primary source of those compounds now. Your ships would starve within weeks of any conflict. Another change. And your Morvani consciousness cores? We maintain those cores for centuries. We know how to disrupt them permanently. Not just damage them, not just disable them, destroy them completely. Every Morvani soldier who faced us would be fighting with their immortality on the line. The chamber had gone completely silent. Even the background hum of the station's failing systems seemed to fade away. We do not want war, Patricia continued. Humanity has never wanted war. We wanted partnership. We wanted respect. We wanted to be treated like beings who mattered. You refused to give us any of that, so we left. She deactivated the display and put the device back in her pocket. We have built our own alliances now, our own trade networks, our own civilization. One that does not depend on a council that never valued us and never will. Then why are you here? The high speaker asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because some of you are talking about forcing us to come back. About attacking our worlds and killing our people and making us serve you again. Patricia's eyes were hard as stone. I came to tell you what would happen if you tried. She began walking toward the exit, then stopped and turned back. We would not fight to conquer you. We would not fight to rule you. We would simply fight to make sure you could never threaten us again. And given how weak you have become without us, that would not be difficult. What do you want from us? The Crethan minister asked desperately. What would it take to bring you back? Nothing, Patricia said. There is nothing you can offer us that we need. We have moved on. The question now is not what we want from you. The question is whether you can survive without us. She walked to the doorway and paused one last time. My advice? Start learning to do things for yourselves. Learn to maintain your own stations. Learn to fly your own ships. Learn to do the hard, dangerous work that you dumped on us for 3 centuries. She smiled, and there was something almost like pity in it. We learned to do everything without your help. It made us stronger than you ever imagined. Maybe it will do the same for you. The doors closed behind her, and she was gone. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the Morvani delegate rose from his seat. She is bluffing, he said, but his voice shook. They cannot possibly be as strong as she claims. Can they not? The high speaker replied quietly. They survived 3 centuries of our contempt. They built ships and weapons and alliances while we laughed at them. They walked away from everything they knew and created something better. She looked around at the broken, failing chamber. Does any part of this look like they were bluffing? No one answered. There was nothing to say. The Galactic Council had spent 300 years believing that humanity was beneath them. Now a single human had walked into their most sacred chamber, told them exactly how weak they were, and walked out again, and they could do nothing but watch her go. 3 years had passed since humanity walked away. The galaxy that had once laughed at human ambition now watched them with fear and desperate longing. The Terran Republic, as humanity now called their new government, had become the fastest-growing power in known space. Their colonies spread into regions the Council had been afraid to explore. Their ships traveled routes that Council vessels could not survive. Their diplomats made friends with species that had never even heard of the Council. Meanwhile, the Council was dying on Valenthi Prime. High Counselor Theraxis lay in his private chambers, his crystal body crumbling. He had been alive for 10,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had believed, truly believed, the Velanatha would last forever. He had been wrong. The psychic network that connected all. It was a complex system of crystals and energy fields that linked every Volanthia mind together, allowing them to share thoughts and feelings across the vastness of space. Human engineers had maintained that system for 3 centuries, keeping it running even when the ancient technology began to fail. Now no one knew how to fix it, and the Volanthi were slowly going insane. The network degradation is accelerating, his advisor Sarath reported. Sarath had been young once. Now, his crystals were cracked and dull, aged decades in just a few years by the stress of watching his civilization collapse. More of our people lose connection every day. They become isolated, alone. Many cannot survive the loneliness. How many have we lost? Thraxus asked, his voice a fading whisper. 40,000 this year alone. Suicide. Madness. Simple despair. Sarath's light flickered with grief. We are a people who have never been alone, High Counselor. We do not know how to be alone. And now that is all we have left.
What news from the negotiations with the humans?
Ambassador Hughes has agreed to consider humanitarian aid. Food, medicine, basic supplies. But he will not discuss technological assistance. He will not send workers to repair our systems. He says his people have built better lives elsewhere. They are not available for council service anymore. Thraxus would have laughed if he had the strength. Better lives. Of course they had better lives. Any life would be better than the one the council had given them. I made a mistake, Thraxus said quietly. 300 years ago, when I was young, I voted against human membership in the council. I thought they were primitive. Beneath us, not worthy of equality. His crystals dimmed. I was a fool. You are not alone, High Counselor. We all thought the same. That does not make it less foolish. Thraxus closed his eyes. Tell Ambassador Hughes that I would like to speak with him. Personally, before I die, what will you say? I will apologize. It will not change anything. It will not bring back the humans we used and discarded. It will not repair the damage we did. But perhaps, if I say it sincerely, it will be a beginning. On Marsh Prime, the Crethon faced extinction with the quiet acceptance of a people who had run out of options. 7 of their 12 great underwater cities had been abandoned. The populations had crowded into the remaining 5, living in conditions of poverty and filth that no Crethon had experienced in thousands of years. The water that gave them life was slowly becoming poison, and no one could stop it. The new Minister of Resources, a young reformist named Thulith, had tried everything. She had sent her people to learn the maintenance skills that humans had once performed. Many had died in the attempt, their bodies crushed by pressure or burned by thermal vents. Those who survived could not work fast enough to keep up with the decay. We have perhaps 30 years, Thulith told the Crethan High Council. Maybe less. Our species will survive in some form, but our civilization is already dead. We are living in its corpse, and the humans. They have offered to sell us new filtration technology. Systems designed by their own engineers better than anything we have ever had. Thulith's tentacles curled with shame. Their price is public acknowledgement of what we did to them. A formal apology, broadcast across all channels, monuments on every Crethan world honoring the human workers who died in our service. That is a heavy price, one of the council members said. Is it? Thulith replied. Thousands of humans died maintaining our cities. They worked in conditions that would kill us instantly. They did it for 300 years, and we never once thanked them. We never learned their names. We never acknowledged their sacrifice. She looked around at her fellow Crethon. If humiliation is the price of survival, we should pay it gladly. We have earned far worse. The vote was unanimous. The Crethon would apologize. They would build the monuments. They would tell the galaxy what they had done and what it had cost. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But it was a start. On the Morvani orbital platforms, the immortal robots were facing permanent death. Supreme Counselor Zerth 7 stood before a medical scanner. Watching the readout that spelled out his doom, his consciousness core was failing. The delicate systems that held his mind together were breaking down one by one. Without repair, he would die within months. Real death. Final death. The kind of death that the Morvani had believed they had conquered forever. How many have we lost? ZRF-7 asked. 417 permanent deaths since the humans left, his medical technician replied. Another 2,000 showing early-stage core degradation. The failure rate is accelerating. There's nothing we can do. We have tried to train our own technicians. Most cannot master the skills. The few who can work too slowly to keep up with the failures. The technician hesitated. There is one option remaining. Tell me. The humans have agreed to accept individual Morvani who wish to relocate to human space. They will provide maintenance services to those who live among them. Several hundred of our people have already left. Zerith 7 processed this information. Leave the Morvani platforms. Live among the humans they had mocked and used for centuries. Accept charity from beings they had considered inferior. What do they ask in return? Nothing material. They ask only that those who come accept human laws, human customs, human equality. The technician's voice dropped. They ask us to become part of their civilization instead of expecting them to serve ours. It was Zerith 7 realized, a perfect revenge. The humans were not killing the Morvani. They were not conquering them. They were simply offering survival on human terms. And after everything the Morvani had done, those terms were remarkably generous. I will go, Zerith 7 said finally. Supreme Counselor, I will go to human space. I will live under human law. I will accept their help and their equality and their charity. Zerith 7 turned to face his technician. And perhaps if I live long enough, I will understand why they are being kind to us when they have every reason to let us die. The other council members will call you a traitor. The other council members are dying, Zerith 7 replied. I choose to live. And more than that, I choose to learn. Across the galaxy, the same choice was being made by millions of beings from 100 different species. Leave the council. Join humanity. Accept the new order that was rising from the ashes of the old, the Galactic. Council had ruled known space for millions of years. It had believed itself eternal. It had believed itself superior to all other forms of life. Now it was crumbling into dust. And the species it had dismissed as primitive savages was building something better in its place. History. It turned out, had a sense of irony after all. 5 years after humanity walked away, the Galactic Council met for the last time. The Grand Assembly Chamber was nearly empty. The Great Hall that had once held thousands of delegates from hundreds of worlds now contained only a few dozen survivors. The Valanthi delegation was a handful of elderly crystals, their light fading with each passing day. The Crethon sent only one representative, their remaining population too busy fighting for survival to spare more. Most of the Morvani seats were vacant because most of the Morvani had already fled to human space. Hi, Speaker. Saroth stood at the central podium. He had inherited the position after Theraxis died, and he had spent the last year watching everything his predecessor had built collapse into nothing. We are gathered here to acknowledge what all of us have known for a long time, Sareth said, his crystal voice echoing in the empty chamber. The Galactic Council has failed. Not because of invasion, not because of natural disaster, but because of our own arrogance and cruelty. No one argued. There was no one left who could. For 300 years, humanity served us faithfully. They ask only for respect, for fairness, for the basic dignity that every thinking being deserves. We denied them everything. We laughed at them. We used them. And when they finally grew tired of our contempt and chose to leave, we discovered that we could not survive without them. Sareth paused, looking around at the remnants of galactic civilization. Today, I am announcing the formal dissolution of the Galactic Council. In its place, we will seek admission to the Terran Compact, the alliance that humanity has built with our former subjects and trading partners. His voice grew quiet. We will ask them to accept us, and we will pray that they are more merciful than we deserve. On Earth, in the rebuilt city of Geneva, Ambassador Daniel Hughes watched the transmission with his old friend Admiral Patricia Vance. "They are really doing it," Patricia said, wonder in her voice. "After everything, they are actually admitting they were wrong." Daniel nodded slowly. He was older now, his hair completely white, his face lined with years of hard work and harder decisions. But his eyes were still sharp, and his mind was still clear. "It took them long enough," he said. "Will we accept them? Into the compact?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Part of him, the part that remembered every insult and every injury and every human life lost to council indifference, wanted to refuse. Let them face the consequences of their choices. Let them die alone in the darkness they had created. But another part of him remembered why. Humanity had always pushed for acceptance in the first place, not for power, not for revenge, but because they believed in something better than the galaxy they had been given. "We will accept them," he said finally. "With conditions. They will have to work alongside other species as equals, not masters, not servants. Equals. They will have to contribute based on what they can offer, not what they think they deserve. And they will have to accept that humanity leads this compact not because we conquered anyone, but because we earned it. Do you think they will agree to that? They do not have a choice. And maybe in a few generations, they will understand that being equal partners is better than being fallen masters." He stood and walked to the window. Looking out at the city that humanity had rebuilt after the Council's economic sanctions had tried to destroy it, Geneva was thriving now. All of Earth was thriving. All of human space was thriving. "You know what the strangest part is?" he said. "We never wanted them to fall. We just wanted them to see us. Really see us. Not as tools to be used. Not as servants to be commanded. Just as people. Living, breathing, thinking, people with dreams and hopes and the right to be treated with dignity. And now they do see us," Patricia said. "Now they see us." Daniel turned back to face his old friend. "Let us go welcome them to the family. They have a lot to learn about treating other species with respect. And we have a lot of experience to share." Patricia stood and straightened her uniform. "Do you think they will actually change?" "Some will. Some will not. But their children will grow up in a galaxy where every species has value, where no one is laughed at for wanting to be treated fairly, where the strong help the weak instead of crushing them." He paused at the door. "That is the galaxy we are building. That is the galaxy we walked away to create." The formal ceremony took place 3 months later on Nexus Prime, the same station where Daniel had announced humanity's withdrawal 5 years before. The chamber had been cleaned and repaired by human volunteers, a small gesture of goodwill to mark the beginning of a new era. Sarath stood before the assembly of human and alien delegates, his crystal form gleaming with new light. Behind him were the representatives of every council species that had chosen to join the compact. In front of him was Daniel Hughes, now wearing the formal robes of the Terran Republic's chief ambassador. 5 years ago, Sareth said, a human stood in this chamber and asked for equality. We laughed at him. We mocked him. We sent him away with nothing but our contempt. He paused. Today I stand in this chamber to ask for the same thing. Equality. Partnership. A chance to prove that we can be better than we were. Daniel stepped forward. His voice was calm and steady, the same voice that had announced humanity's departure 5 years before. The Terran Compact welcomes the former members of the Galactic Council, he said, not as conquered peoples, not as subjects, but as partners in building something new, something better, something worthy of the galaxy we all share. He extended his hand to Sareth. The Volanthi looked at it for a long moment. then reached out with his crystalline appendage and completed the gesture. "We have much to learn from you," Sereth said quietly. "And we from you," Daniel replied. That is what partnership means. It's outside the chamber, the stars burned as they always had. But something had changed. The old order was gone, swept away by a species that had been too stubborn to accept its own weakness. In its place was something new, something built on respect instead of contempt, on cooperation instead of exploitation, on the simple idea that every thinking being, no matter how small or primitive or strange, deserved to be treated with dignity. Humanity had walked away from the Galactic Council. In doing so, they had destroyed an empire that had lasted millions of years. But they had also created something better. A galaxy where the strong lifted up the weak, where the powerful protected the vulnerable, where no one would ever again be laughed at for asking to be treated as an equal. That was the human way. Not conquest, not revenge, just the simple, stubborn belief that the universe could be better than it was. And now finally, the rest of the galaxy was beginning to believe it too. Daniel Hughes walked out of the chamber into the light of a new day. Behind him, the representatives of 100 worlds were learning to see each other as partners instead of competitors. It would take time. It would take patience. It would take more work than anyone could imagine. But humanity had always been good at hard work. And now, they had the whole galaxy to help them. The future, for the first time in 300 years, looked bright.